Everyone, to this exciting session on accelerating business growth and by building high performance teams. The title of our session that very much relates to this is the answer for this is OKRs. And then we'll get into the opportunities and challenges with OKRs. So thank you, Gaurav and Jim. Before I introduce you, let me get a little bit into how I got into OKRs myself. So I'm on the board of IIT Bay Area, and we have a book club there. And in September of 2021, somebody said, Measure What Matters by John Doerr is an excellent book to read. And I was like, what is that? So anyway, I ended up reading the book, and this was a New York Times bestseller book. And for people who don't know, the author John Doerr himself is extremely famous. He, a couple of years ago, put $1 billion in Stanford to create the School of Sustainability. I mean, this is so far the biggest donation to pretty much any university in the world. So he's a big shot. And when he writes something, it's serious. When it goes to a New York bestsellers, that means you better take whatever this is seriously. There is some gold there. So I read the book and found it really interesting. I kind of, it kind of makes sense, and I tried to bring it to Samsung. This was September, and I talked to my boss, and he explored a bunch of other things, and we couldn't really do anything with it because first of all, we didn't really know what is a proper way to write OKRs, and then to follow up and all that. It just got fizzled and nothing really came out of it. So that was pretty disappointed. And I moved on with various projects until I met Gaurav. One of my classmates recommended I talk to him that he has a startups on OKRs. I was like, wow, that's interesting. So I met him, and now, I started my own journey with OKRs with GetJob. And so when I think about OKRs and the business problems, at Samsung, I was in charge of creating growth. So in my mind, there were three ways to create growth. One is you have the same product, you look for new markets, right? And this is a big company perspective. The second option is you have your product, you are willing to do some changes. So you work with startups, see what exciting stuff they're doing. You work with your customers and kind of tweak stuff here and there, and you come up with something new. And you chase either the same customers or new markets with that. So that's kind of open innovation angle. And the third is you find internal efficiencies and try to tune it to the market needs. The market needs a subscription model. You don't have a subscription model. Let's create that. But OKRs is a completely different way of creating that growth. And that is to make sure your internal teams are just aligned and synchronized. Whatever the market is, it doesn't really matter. And this is something new to me. I didn't know. And I had not thought about it this way until, Gaurav and I had a chat. So with that perspective, I think about two analogies. One is this team rowing, where the team needs to be completely synchronized. And most of these competitions happen in very still waters. So you can think about it, a team executing where the external factors are even for everybody. And they're pretty stable and still. And whether you win or not completely depends on how well you are synchronized. On the right side, there's whitewater rafting, and that's actually my picture there. This is the real life condition, especially for startups. A big company is like even a little troubled water is like, is pretty calm for it. But especially for small teams and startups, everything appears like, whitewater rafting. Your team is there struggling to maintain the same directions. Yes, there are some headwinds and you will be pushed forward, but you could equally land it in big trouble if you're not careful. So the reason why I'm bringing this analogy is because OKRs have a lot to do with it. And what is that lot to do? Think about it as things are changing. You have to constantly realign. And every team may not be doing the same thing. They may be doing different things. How do you keep track of all that complexity? It gets really complicated pretty soon. Maybe with 10 people, you can manage it with your Excel sheets, and maybe you have great memory and things like that. But at some point, sooner or later, it's better to have something helping you there. And that's where I look at OKR software as a solution. But that's not all. It's like I read John Doerr's book and I know how everything about OKR. I know I read a book on swimming and I know how to swim. No, that doesn't work like that. So let's get into more detailed discussion. But before that, I would like Jim to introduce himself. He's a OKR coach, and let him speak about his background and what brings him into OKRs.
I appreciate that, Rishi. Thank you. Grateful to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this. I could talk OKRs anytime you want. I enjoy talking about OKRs, but a bit about my background. I'm an OKR coach and an agile transformation specialist. I've been in the industry for 15 plus years, and during that time, I've held a number of different leadership roles in product development, program management, operations, and project management. And I've been fortunate to work with Fortune 500 organizations as well as startups. And it gave me the opportunity to see that the challenges that we have, regardless of the size of the organization, they're very similar, right? And so much of that is around strategic execution. And so that's where I think OKRs are a great complement to that, and they're agnostic in terms of the size of your organization. And so that is just a little bit about my background. So appreciate the opportunity.
And next, I welcome Gaurav. Please introduce yourself. I mean, yes, he's a CEO of Good Job, which is an OKR company. It's not just an OKR company, it's a lot more than that. And Gaurav will tell you that. You're on mute, Gaurav.
Yeah, don't we always do that? Thank you, Rishi, and thanks, Jim, for your time today. And so a little about me. I've been an entrepreneur now for over 2 decades, built businesses in tech, mostly in the last 15 years. This is my 4th startup that I'm building right now. And during my journey, while I was building businesses before and scaling, what I realized is hustle can only take you so far, right? As a founder, as management, we always like to strive for our goals, but you cannot do that just by yourself. You need teams to be aligned for that, motivated for that, and they need to be in sync, right? You can't have them to be work in silos. And that led me to my journey of OKRs. And going back to the book that you mentioned, there are certain books which kind of inspire you. That book actually changed me. And I say that, with all the candidness. And I think in the audience, whoever has not been able to get their hands on it, I highly recommend that. Yes, you're right. Job or joy of performing is beyond OKRs today. We are enabling business and people performance. And I think the way to do that is having transparent goal setting, and that is done by OKRs. And there is a lot more that happens through jobs. So at some point, would love to show the audience what we can do.
All right. So with that, I would like to ask Jim a question. I did mention briefly about where OKR came from, but can you double click on that and tell us about what are OKRs and where did they originate?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to OKRs, the way I like to introduce them as a change management framework, right, that helps organizations create alignment between strategy and execution. But what does that mean exactly, right? Well, the goal with OKRs is really to identify that strategy and then deliver on that strategy, right? But there's a component of change management to that we never want to underestimate. When you adopt OKRs, not only are you adopting a new framework, but you're adopting the way a new way of doing things, right? The conversations that you're going to have within your organization are different. The way you measure your outcomes are now different, right? Some of the tools that you're using and the conversations, all of that is new, right? And so that's the change management piece of OKRs. The objective and the key result, though, I mean, it's the objective is that qualitative piece, right? And then the quantitative piece
Let me
is
pause here a little bit for the audience who have not read the book or not familiar with it. O and KR, they stand for objects and key results, right?
that's correct.
And, right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that all of our audience is on the same page. And can you also define what is change management?
Change management, I mean, it's it's taking your organization through just a different way of doing things, right? I mean, there's adaptive change management, and then there's transformational change management, and OKRs fall into that latter because we're changing the way we do work, and the tools that we use, the conversations, right? So all of that changes. The objective and the key result, that's almost the easy part of OKRs, right? To come up with that qualitative objective and then that quantitative key result. That once you develop that muscle memory, that becomes the easy part, but it's the change management piece of it. All these things that are new within our organization and a different way of doing things, right? And so, I mean, that's the way I like to introduce OKRs. In terms of its origins, though, I mean, that goes back to the late 1960s with Andy Grove and Intel, right? He was, at the time, Intel was in kind of in a battle with Motorola to become the dominant microprocessor in the market. And so Andy Grove came up with OKRs as a way to dominate over Motorola. And they came up with a program called Operation Crush. It was designed after the Denver Broncos from that same era. But it was a tool that they used in the framework that they used to eventually win the microprocessor market. And so those are its origins, right? But then you look at John Dewar, he was fortunate to work for Andy Grove back in the 70s at Intel, right? And then, so that's where the OKRs go from Intel into Google in 1999 when Dewar introduced them to Google at that time, right? And Google at the time, I believe they were a year old, approximately 40 employees, right? So that's a bit about the background there.
Okay, excellent. Am I audible? Because my image seems to be frozen.
Yeah, you are, yes. We
Okay.
just see you.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, it's a pretty old framework, and Intel successfully used it to outsmart the competition way back in 60s and 70s. That's really excellent. So they work if implemented properly, right? So
that's the key right there. They've implemented properly.
Yeah. So, we talked about even Google implementing it. The book advertisement says that, and Intel implementing it. So, is it only for big companies, or can small and medium-sized companies also benefit from this?
I think OKRs are size agnostic, right? I mean, you look at it, Intel, when they implemented, they were, thousands of employees, and Google, 40 employees, right? I was fortunate to work with a local outdoor retailer here in Salt Lake. And when I worked with them to implement OKRs, they were 15, right? And so I have personal OKRs. So I don't think that OKRs are, unique to one particular size of organization.
Okay, so that's good to know. So that means even startups, reasonably small startups can also benefit from it.
Absolutely.
I'm imagining if you're just a 2-person startup, you just need to talk to the other person. You don't really need anything. But for a decent sized team, you need something external to help yourself. So, question to you, Gaurav. You know, OKRs have been there for a long time. So, why do you need OKR kind of software, and why do you need it now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question to ask, right? Why do we need OKRs? I mean, business as usual is still happening. Companies are still growing. There is a lot more growth that companies have today than earlier. Then why do we need OKRs? I think the OKR philosophy or the OKR framework is nothing more but the way of setting up goals and aligning it, cascading it down to your teams, so that people can collaborate and go to that common North Star and achieve the growth that they have set out for themselves. And today, I think the problem persists more than maybe any time before, which is how do you focus? How do you prioritize? There is so much happening in a business. There are so many choices to make. How do you, as a team, kind of set aside your goals and be sure that you're at it and you don't get them sidelined because there is always a shiny ball that comes right in front of you, or firefighting that is happening all the time. So I think that way prioritization is extremely required, and that is what OKRs does. And that is where I think today, whether you're building up a startup and you are trying to find your product market fit, or you're trying to scale a startup, you need the most in terms of, at least in the startup world. In the corporate world, the whole alignment that OKR provides, or the framework provides, is beautiful. It's very easy for you to get into a silo and think that I am doing well, my teams are doing well, but not be aligned with the whole business goal, right? And are you really moving the needle on the business goals or not? And that is what OKR is kind of does. Now, why a software? I think that was your second question. In my view, one can handle it on Excel. Like, I've done it on Excel previously. That's not problem. But if you're getting into more complex businesses, and if there are people who want to understand what's happening with their data, you want to go back in time, you're going to figure out what really worked, what did not work. And business is all about those insights, right? I mean, you're doing work every day, but what kind of insights do you get from it? How do you make your decision making better? How are you giving continuous feedback to your people so that they can realize that where is it that they need to spend more time on? How are they getting recognized for things that they are doing well? Some critical feedback where they need it the most. So I think all those things are hard when you're doing on a static platform such as Excel or Google Sheets or something. But when you look into a product which can handle this better and can then line that with your business and people performance management, it just makes a lot of sense for the business.
Wow. So definitely, as the world gets more and more connected, there is competition is more intense. You have a lot more data. The better you can align your people, and the better you can make use of the data.
Seems we lost Rishi. That's fine. So yeah, so I think why don't we take it up till Rishi comes back, Jim? And I think maybe the next thing I would like to understand is that, is this industry agnostic? Like, do you think OKRs work better for any particular industry than the others? What has your experience been like, since you've been coaching different companies, different leaders on OKRs? So would love to get a little insight on that.
Absolutely. And I think the beauty in OKRs is the mindset that it drives, right? OKRs is really more of a mindset in terms of, there too is it's industry agnostic. And the beauty with OKRs is that the way we hold ourselves accountable going forward is now different. I think so much of what we are accustomed to when it comes to projects is just this project-based way of thinking, right? This giant list of tasks, right? And that's how we measure our output, right? We refer to that as the outcome, right? If the more tasks that we can check off, the more effective our project is. And with OKRs, no, we're now focusing on that outcome, right? And all of this output that we're doing over here is that means to the end. And so when it comes to industries, right, it's really more about changing that mindset from this output task-based way of thinking to more of outcomes and holding ourselves accountable to that number, right? I mean, I can say that I want to lose weight, and 25 pounds, and that's great if that's what I think I can realistically do. But with OKRs, I'm now held accountable because I have a diet plan, I have a workout plan, right? I'm stepping on the scale, I'm doing all of these things, and so because I'm not just keeping tasks of things that we're doing, keeping track of that, I'm actually measuring, and I think that's the mindset that OKRs drives. And so, in terms of industry, I think many industries can benefit from it.
Yeah, I think it's great that you bring that particular point across, which is outcome versus actions, right? And I think that's super important for our audience to kind of get a perspective on, because we're always taking actions. Now, are those actions getting to outcomes or not is the question to ask and the question to reflect, right? It's very easy to be busy, but by the end of the quarter, not move the needle on things that you've set out for goals, right? And I think that's where a product like Job or the framework like OKRs can really help, because it gets you really focused on whether you're moving the needle, whether you're getting the outcome or not. And
Absolutely.
for the industry, I have seen, Jim, whether it's manufacturing, retail, real estate, SaaS, technology, business is a business, and it starts with defining your objectives on the top, cascading down to your people, teams, and there now every business have different nuances, whether it's operation heavy or service heavy or innovation heavy, and of course every business has their own nuances. But in order for you to get to those nuances and the kind things that that matters, I think that is where a product like Job or OKR philosophy helps. So I agree with you that yes, anything that anything that needs to be measured and can be done better, OKRs can be useful for that. Fantastic. And what are the benefits you think that I mean, forget Job, but what are the benefits you think that OKR softwares can really help with, and what is your take on it? You would have worked with a few. What is your understanding of them, and how do you think the audience can make the best use of products in the OKR software space?
Absolutely. I mean, I recommend Job to many of my clients, right? And that's for good reason, because it's helpful to have that software that is tailored towards the OKRs, right? And what you're doing. And yeah, to your point, yeah, we can manage them on spreadsheets and so forth. But once you start to get to a certain size of scale, that's where a tool like Job is extremely helpful. And the data that you can collect from the tools, right, is what's really helpful in being able to understand that. But it also forces accountability on us as an organization, right? And I think that's one of the areas where organizations struggle is because we take this set it and forget it sort of mentality, right? And so we aren't disciplined with our ceremonies. We aren't checking in on our weekly check-in, and we're not doing any of these things, right? But when we have a tool that helps us to measure that, I think there's that accountability there. And so I think it's important that that we have some method of tracking that information, and tools are a great way to do that. So.
Yeah, I wanna double down on check-in, right? I think very easy to miss that, and very important for our audience to understand the whole importance of check-in. So from my own experience, when I'm working with my teams, this is something I'm super disciplined about, and has helped me the most. Every team come together and do their cadences, right? I mean, they talk about the challenges and figure out what the problems are and how to solve them in order for them to keep on going in the business. What I love about this whole OKR way of working is that when you do your check-ins with team, whether you want to do it once a week, bi-weekly, however you want to set the cadence, the time that you're spending with your team is not so much on identifying the problem, because that is right in front of you. So you've set your goals, you know where the gaps are you moving the needle or not? So everything is extremely transparent, and there is no ifs and ambiguity in that, right? So the time spent on those check-ins or those meetings is really to figure out what are the different innovative ways to find out a solution for those challenges. And I think that gets you so much. It's so simple, but so easy to miss, because I have seen people coming in meetings, and spending an hour just to figure out where the problem is. And by the time they are able to get to the problem and start thinking about real solutions, the meeting is gone, right? The time is gone. And what we do at Job, and I think I'm extremely proud of that, and we get a lot of great feedback from our users, is people can do async check-in. They don't need to be one time, because people are working in different hours. It's a world economy today, different countries and whatnot. So we have this panel which helps you to come in to figure out where is the company, where is the team today, and how far they are, and where is the problem to solve that. So yeah, I think check-in is a great way to manage this. If you want to add anything to it, or we can move forward from here.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I think the check-in is definitely some time where we want to spend it, especially if we're new to OKRs, right? I mean, we want to make sure that we're all on that same page.
Absolutely. So any specific metrics or methodologies that you think are required, or any prior understanding? Like, let's say I'm a business and I want to get into OKRs, right? What are the maybe the 3 steps or the 5 steps for me to take in order for me to make it real, for my business? What are your steps, or what do you want me to take away from this conversation?
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of OKRs, I mean, the one thing that I encourage clients to do, and that I'm very upfront with, is that that they want to take the framework serious, right? That's one of the things that we can do to be successful, is to know that we're truly embracing OKRs, right? And have that support from our leadership team. That is key in order for OKRs to be successful. But also to view OKRs through that change management lens, right? Understand that what we're doing is we are taking the organization through some change. And so we want to be thoughtful about how we're going to do it. We also want to be cognizant to the fact that it's going to take us a little while to really develop that muscle, right? And to get those legs under us, right? So, I mean, we can't expect to be humming on all cylinders after 3 months of OKRs, right? It's going to take some time to build that up. And so I think it's important for organizations to take that into consideration, that it's a journey with OKRs, right? And so over time, we start to measure how well our program is doing. And I think one of the ways that you can measure how well your program is doing is it delivering what you wanted it to deliver when you adopted the framework? And what I mean by that is I have organizations that will reach out to me and they'll say, well, we want to just build greater clarity through the organization, right? Well, that's great, but what does greater clarity mean, right? And so if you're able to define and measure what greater clarity means, and you're able to identify that at some point in your journey, then I would say OKRs is paying off for you, right? But you do want to take it serious. You do want to commit to it because it's quite an investment that you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, very interesting. And as you said, that commitment from the top, commitment from the management, from the leadership is extremely important. And I've seen that as well, right? When people think it's one more thing to add to their business, it hardly works. It does need commitment. It does need that patience, and it needs that discipline to create that culture in the organization. And to that point, do you think then it is top down or it's bottom up? What would your take on that would be?
Well, it's a combination of both, right? I mean, because you need that strategy, those strategic OKRs, those annual OKRs, you need that from your leadership team, right? I mean, they're the ones coming up with that strategy and connecting it to the company mission and values and so forth, right? But in terms of execution, it's that bottom up piece, right? From your teams. I mean, your teams know what they're capable of doing. And with software teams in particular, they just want to know what the problem is and let them go off and solve that problem, right? And not being told how to solve the problem. So when we talk about top down versus bottom up, we want to be thoughtful to the fact that we're getting our strategy from the top, but from the bottoms up, that is where the execution is coming, right? That's where we're solving the problem. And that's where we're also taking into consideration, not only are we solving for our OKRs, but I still have all this business as usual stuff going on, right? The day-to-day stuff that I need to account for as well. So when setting my OKRs from the bottom up, I'm cognizant to all of that stuff that's going on, right? So I think in terms of that top down and that bottom up, you need that top down strategy from your leadership team, those annual OKRs, but then you get those tactical OKRs from that quarterly cycle from your teams that deliver throughout the year. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
No, that's great. That's great. No, I agree. I think the vision, the mission, the whole corporate strategy is extremely important, and you can't do that without the top down or understanding at the top. But at the same time, people who are working really on the ground, and teams that are working on the ground, they need to have their tactical OKR and then align it to the top. So, yeah. I see Hrishikesh is back. Hey, Rishi, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So Zoom has done something funky. I think they have one of my, I'm logged in somehow twice, but I don't see that on my computer. So,
Okay. Well, good to have you back. We thought we lost you here, but good to have you back. So we were just talking about, we covered a lot, Rishi, in terms of what audience would like to hear, and there are certain questions which I can see coming from the audience. So why don't we take them, Jim and Rishi, if you're okay, and then
we can certainly take them. But since I logged in late, I don't see those questions, so you'll have to read them.
Absolutely, no problem. So I think one of the questions that Nishi is asking is, what type of mistakes is a product owner likely to commit while deciding on OKRs? I think that's an interesting one, because while this question is asked for product, this could be relevant to other divisions as well. So what kind of mistakes, a team owner or a business owner is likely to commit while deciding on those objectives and key results?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would think that, one of the things that I see with product owners that are new to OKRs is creating OKRs for everything, right? All of those tasks, that list of to-do items that we were talking about earlier, oftentimes I see those becoming OKRs, right? And so when you're adopting OKRs, the adage of less is more is definitely true in this case, right? And so when we, from a product owner perspective, really what we're focused on is that key result that we've identified for our teams, right? That's the key result that we're tracking. And so when it comes to all of the stuff that populates our backlogs and so forth, those are the activities that we're doing to reach that key result, right? And so how you manage those activities are really, you know, key in terms of, we don't want to turn all of those into key results, because the more key results and the more OKRs that you create, the more things that you have to track, right? So the adage, less is more. And like I say, that's one of the things that I see with product owners sometimes, is they'll create this huge backlog of OKRs, but really it's just a giant to-do list.
Interesting. Rishi, if you can hear us, we would love to get your perspective now that you've been involved in the OKR space for the last couple of years. That is when you were introduced to them, and maybe you're working with some startups or organization. What is your experience of it? What have you been able to get from OKRs that you think was interesting, extraordinary, that you could not think that you could get without a framework like this?
Yeah, I think in my perspective, growth is important for everybody. You know, for big companies, Samsung, as big as it is, it still wanted to grow. And it's even more critical for startups because there's a lot at stake. A lot of VCs evaluate startups based on how fast they are growing. The multiples are decided by that. The valuation is decided by that. And if you don't have all your ducks in one row, that growth will be impacted, your valuation will be impacted. VCs care a lot about it, not just because it means they'll make a higher multiple on their returns, but also when they exit, they're able to get better valuations for their current investments. When they go IPO, they can get better IPO valuation. So it's really important. Until last year, when VCs looked at startups, growth was very heavily weighted. But since the economic crisis, growth is not the only factor they care about. They also care about fiscal discipline, but growth still dominates. Anything you can do to bring growth is very important.
Got it. And just to add on to that, Rishi, what I've seen is that, companies can have different goals that they want to go for at a particular time. Like they can be growth heavy, they can be profitable heavy at some point. So, and these things are very dynamic and changes in different businesses, whether of different sizes. However, the beauty of framework like OKR or goal setting is that, you can set your goals the way your business needs them. It just provides a discipline for you to get closer to your goals. And the goal setting exercise is absolutely on to the management or what the business needed for, but your probability increases so much higher when you have a framework, when you have a discipline, when you have a product to manage that, rather than when you're trying to do it and trying to wing it as you go along. So that is what I've seen. Jim, any words from you on this?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree. I mean, again, just kind of going back to, that discipline piece of it. So, but yeah, no, I'm 100%.
Got it. And I think one of the audience has come asked, and that's a very important question, just because, I have heard that quite a bit, is so OKRs is great when you're trying to do stretch goals, right? Because that is what OKRs are known for. But what if a business is mostly BAU heavy, business as usual heavy? And the audience gave an example of a bank, right? Running a bank where you don't need to change things. It's like running the same thing over and over again. In a business like that, how are OKRs still relevant?
I mean, my thoughts are, I would say go back to, in terms of for a business as usual organization, why is it that you want to adopt OKRs exactly, right? I mean, and that's the first question that any organization should be asking themselves. Why do we want to adopt OKRs? And in terms of your business as usual, what are those goals that you're trying to achieve? Are you trying to become more efficient with your take software, for example? Are you trying to become more efficient with your delivery process? Are you trying to become more, build a better quality product with less bugs and so forth, right? So in that business as usual piece of that, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Why do you want to adopt OKRs? Why do you need a strategic execution framework, right? And I guess that's really the question. What is it? Why are we adopting it?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. And I would also like to bring about another perspective that is really any business in a static mode today. Is business as usual really exists? Because think about all the companies who did not change, or who did not grow, or who did not think of themselves being a disruptor in the industry. Where are they today? I mean, take an example of Nokia, right? Where were they at one point, and where are they today? So I think even if it is a bank where you don't need to change every day, and it is, yes, business as usual heavy, but at the same time, you need to figure out innovative ways to keep your customers with you. You need to figure out ways to keep your bank efficient, or your business efficient, in order to keep your costs down. And those are goals. I mean, they can change from time to time. And OKR, as I said before, that does not tell you what your goals should be, but it take your goals and just builds better probability for you to become successful at them. So I think that's what my take would be. Another good point which comes across, and maybe Rishi, I would like you to give your comments on that. That what is the difference that you think is there in between KPIs and OKR, right? So the key performance indicators and the objective key results. Like, what is the difference, and why would somebody move from a KRA KPI to an OKR word?
I don't think it's moving from one to another. I think you have to use both. KPI are just key performance indicator. These are the things by which you measure success. It's not how you keep aligned. Those two are two different things. When you implement OKRs and when your team is all aligned, it gets much easier for you to achieve your KPIs than without that alignment. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'll just like to add one more thing here, is the concept of lag indicators and lead indicators, right? So to my mind, KPIs are great. You need indicators for you to see whether you've reached your destination, but it's a lag indicator. You can only understand your KPIs after the time has been spent for you to realize whether you're on point or not, whether you've achieved your goals or not. OKRs, in my view, are more lead indicators. So while you are taking that journey, what are the initiatives? What are the actions? What are the strategic actions that one has to take in order for you to get to your KPIs is what OKR does. So absolutely agreed, Rishi. I don't think one is replacing the other. I think one is making the other stronger. So with working with OKRs, you're in a much better probability for you to get to your KPIs.
So Gaurav, I would like to delve this a little bit deeper, because I think, just understanding O and KR is clearly not sufficient. I would like you to double click a little bit on your product. And if you have slides, maybe you can share them. But, you know, walk us through how exactly the software achieves that. That's a very key point. It's a leading indicator. The OKRs is a leading indicator. How exactly it is a leading indicator can help people understand that.
Sure. Let me see if I can share my screen. I would just like to maybe show one slide. Yeah.
Okay,
Can you guys see this?
it's loading. Okay, you can see it.
Got it. So this is what we call, Rishi, as a job wheel or joy of performing wheel. Now, where it all starts is with getting your direction right, right? So what is it that you want to go for? And that is something which a business has to decide themselves. Now, I understand that sometimes it becomes very complex for you to even get your goals be defined from your strategy. And this is where, we have friends and consultants like Jim who come into play, and they can help you to cascade those OKRs for you. But let's say if you have the maturity as a business and you've already done it, so those OKRs then can be aligned in the product right away. Now, alignment is the cause and effect, which should be and is seen on our product, which shows what is the relationship from different teams to the corporate OKRs. And when you move the needle on one of the teams, how does it really impact on the corporate OKRs, right? And that is what job does. Now, magic happens when the execution is done right, right? I mean, we can create all the plans in the world, but if we don't have the muscles or we don't have the means to execute them, we really don't move the needle, right? And that is where a job as a product really helps, because we have created those enablers within the product, which not only keeps you on track but even helps you to get to your goals. And that is something that we have on our product, both web and mobile.
So let me summarize so far. So you have like a key high level goal that gets split into different goals at different levels. And for each of those goals, you have your key results. These are the results that you want to achieve, let's say by the end of the month or end of the quarter, whatever your cadence is. And then for each of those results, you have multiple actions. And that's the execution part. And then you're able to keep track of how many of those actions are completed. And that kind of gives you an indicator of how much of your individual goals are completed. And then that kind of adds up at a very high level to indicate how much of your corporate goals are on their way to succeed. And then you can go and double click inside and figure out where exactly the problem is, which action item is causing that problem. And that's why it is a leading indicator, right?
You're absolutely right, because you're taking initiatives which are going to get closer to the goals. So those are the leading indicators. Absolutely. And moving along, sorry, you want to add something to that, Rishi?
Yeah. And then, I mean, I just wanted to go to the other two bullets, and I'm bringing back that analogy of whitewater rafting. So far it's all good if your goals were static.
Yeah.
But you are in troubled waters. Something or the other comes at you. So you have to constantly realign.
Right.
It's feedback. And then for a proper feedback, you need those insights. Where the hell are things going wrong, or what needs to change? So I think this whole thing makes sense as a leading indicator.
Yeah. And, I mean, no matter what tool you bring in, what technology you bring in, if people don't own it, and if people are not motivated to use it, nothing moves the needle, right? So keeping people at the center of the stage, and what is in it for me, is a very important question to answer for people, because people are intelligent and they will ask that question, and they should. What is in it for me, right? And for them to get that continuous nudges, improvement feedback for them to make their journey better is something that what we've done with the product itself. And yes, as you rightly, and I love your analogy of rafting versus rowing, and you need that little nudge as you go along that journey, because that can take you far, right? And that is what the product does. And again, while you do all of this, create a lot of data. Now, how do you slice, dice data so that you can make better decisions for your business, for your teams, for your people, is something what Insight does. Now, this is not like static insights, it's very dynamic. So it can change from a week to week or quarter to quarter. And you can really go slice, dice into different angles that you want to, in order for you to make your business journey better. And that's what Insight does. So that's what we really cover with Job. Maybe I can, what we can do is we can share a survey at this point that we usually do, and and collect some information from our audience, and whoever may want, we're happy to give them a tour of the product and even a free trial for them to play around. So however we wanted to do that.
Well, that's very generous of you. I mean, we are 5 minutes on the hour. Do we still have more audience questions that we can answer? But yes, as Gaurav said, if this can get really deeper, and you should, if you want that additional growth or business efficiency and performance, it's worth putting that time there. And Gaurav is generous to offer one-on-one time and maybe a free trial. So please take advantage of that. I think Aditya put a link for that for you to sign up in the chat. But please take advantage of that. Meanwhile, do we have any more questions that we can answer?
Yeah, I think we've covered majority of it. Since we only have a few minutes left, maybe any parting points that you want to make, Jim, Rishi, before we end our session today?
Jim, go ahead.
Sure. The only thing I would leave would be the if for those out there that are looking to implement OKRs, consider what you're getting yourself into, right? And I say that in a good way, right? Because OKRs are amazing if you apply that discipline and you are committed to them, and you do embrace them, and you embrace that it's going to be a learning piece over many months, right? OKRs are going to benefit you tremendously. But if you think OKRs are just the objective and the key result, and it's that simple, then I would reconsider. And if you're considering adopting OKRs, know why you're adopting OKRs, right? Know why you want to take your organization through all of this change. If you're adopting OKRs because Google did it or because you read a book over the weekend, you're probably adopting OKRs for the wrong reason. So know why you're investing into it, because it can pay off tremendously, but it does require discipline.
But I don't think sometimes the customer need to know why. I think if they talk to Gaurav, maybe they can get more clarity. And that brings another question, right? How much of a time commitment are we really looking at to implement this? Is that going to take a significant amount of their time, or it's fairly, you can just read the tutorials and learn it, or what is the most efficient way to do that? I mean, does it require some hand holding? Gaurav, perhaps you can tell from your experience what you have seen works best with your customers.
Yeah, I think depends on the size of the organization and the complexity of the business. I have seen startups getting into OKR way of working and getting it live in a week's time, right? I mean, yes, identifying your corporate goals and your business goals and then cascading them down to your teams can take some time. But if it's a smaller business, then it is easier. If it's an organization like Samsung, which has many different business units, many things going on, it can take, so that can take time. But once your goal setting is done, having it live on the product, like that, we've sorted and can be onboarded in a day, right? So that's super simple. It's people can do it themselves. They can register and start using it themselves, or we have support teams that can help you get your OKRs on the product and get you going as well. And we are known for our support teams that we offer. So that is easy.
Okay. So my parting thoughts would be, there are many different ways to bring growth and performance, get your teams to perform better. OKR is one of the lowest hanging fruits, and the software is mature, and it has been proven on many different companies. So there is absolutely no reason why you should not give this a shot. Of course, you can try other things like exploring new markets and working open innovation and employ, expensive people like me. Uh, but no, you can get it done much cheaper.
Yeah.
OKRs.
No, thank you. And my parting thoughts are, you're gonna travel the road. Why don't you take the shortest way to get there, to your destination? And that's where Google Maps come in handy, right? Because you want to travel to from point A to point B, but it just maps tell you what is the best way to get there and what are the roads that you want to miss, what are the roads that you want to take. And that is what OKRs do. You're going to travel that road, you're going to go for your business goals. If you have a means and way so that it can shorten that journey, it can make that journey easier. In my view, it's no rocket science for us to take that leap of faith and go with it. So that's why I did it. And I've done it successfully for my businesses and now for other customers as well. And that is a thought that I would leave the audience with. But thank you so much, Rishi. Jim, Aditya, thanks for your time. And looking forward for our next webinar, Rishi, that we can have with maybe someone, then and put more light onto some of the thoughts that we've discussed today.